Welcome to our new series, Blueprint. In order to build the church that we're trying to build, a church that glorifies God and makes disciples by guiding distracted people to confidently pursue their next step with Jesus, it's going to take all hands on deck. It's going to take all time, talent, and treasure to make that happen. And this morning we're going to talk about time. Time is an interesting thing. I was brushing my teeth this morning and watching the seconds tick by on the clock, and they just go so fast, don't they? 2 weeks ago, my mom passed away from a combination of COVID-19 and pneumonia. COVID attacked the outside of her lungs while pneumonia attacked the inside of her lungs. I was in Mexico when I got the news that she went into the hospital. That morning I woke up to an email that said, "Hey, this is the 3rd year anniversary of your dad's passing." I went, okay, this is going to be an interesting day. And then right after that I got a phone call that said, your mom is in the hospital and we just moved her to ICU. We went back and forth with the doctor, and I was in Mexico, so the reception was great. And so I kept walking around. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm on top of the barn. Anyway, I'm trying anything to get a signal. Anyway, finally get a signal, and I'm talking to the doctor, and the doctor said, look, here's where we're at. Her lungs are shot, and it's she's breathing. Her heart is working so hard just to get breath, air, oxygen through her body that the medicine's not being able to take effect. So I said, well, so what do we do? And he said, well, I guess we need to put her on a ventilator. Now, my mom's wishes was all I remember my mom telling me. There was 2 things that she told me about the end of her life kind of stuff. One, she told me that during her funeral, she wanted to sing at her own funeral. Yeah, that's my mom. Yeah, I was like, Mom, how is that going to happen? I want to sing at my own funeral, Paul. Okay, I don't know if that's weird, but okay. I guess we'll go with that. And the other thing she said is, hey, she said in a joking way, well, if there's still a chance, don't pull the plug on me, Paul. But if there's not a chance, then please just let me go. So I was left with a decision because I was in Mexico, and I was walking back and forth, and I was sitting there going, I'm an only child too. So I was like, man, the one time I wish I actually had brothers and sisters to talk to is now. And I just kept pacing. And I said, okay, put her on the ventilator. Because maybe there's a chance. She's a fighter. Maybe there's a chance that'll allow us to get up to Amarillo. So we drove to El Paso. Melanie met us in El Paso, and we went up and met the family in Amarillo. And I was able to go into the COVID unit to see her. And she was completely knocked out because of the ventilator. And the doctor said within 48 hours, we're going to know how this thing is going. And so 48 hours later, he called me with probably the worst decision, the worst choice I've ever had to make in my life. And he said, well, we can keep her on the ventilator for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and maybe she'll come out of this. I said, well, what's the likelihood of that? He said, well, with your mom's health, we're probably talking maybe a 5 to 10%, maybe lower. I'm being generous with those numbers. He said she'll never regain quality of life. He said, or we can remove the ventilator and she won't be able to breathe on her own and she will pass. So I hung up the phone and I said, Doctor, I'll call you back in 30 minutes. I called him back in an hour and a half because I kept just sitting there going. Because how do you make a decision like that, church? It's my mom, right? I was just sitting there going, how in the world am I going to make this decision? And then so I'd ask my aunts and uncles, and they'd be like, I'm making a decision. I was like, dang it. So, but I kept going, I'm a kid. I'm only 41. My parents should be making these decisions. I don't know. I don't know. I reverted back to a kid. I almost went and bought Legos or something and started playing. I was like, it was too much. But finally, we showed up at the hospital, me and Melanie, and we made the difficult decision to take her off the ventilator because I realized my mom didn't want to live that way. So they allowed me and Melanie in the room with her, and on July 24th at 9 p.m., my mom passed away. And as you can imagine, the next few days were a blur. 5,000 decisions needed to be made. Family had to be notified. Every paperwork file under the sun needs to be filled out. But one of the things that I did was to sit down and write my mom's obituary, because they asked me if I wanted to speak at the funeral, and I was like, no. But I said I will write the obituary. And church, how do you put a person's life into a few sentences? How do you encapsulate or measure the impact of someone's life just with a few words? As I sat in front of the blank sheet of paper, I thought about how short life really is. James was right. We are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. The psalmist was right when he said, man is like a breath, his days are like a fleeting shadow. I sat there and I began to cry because I started to think about all the things that my mom was going to miss. My mom would never see her grandkids grow up. My mom never got to go on that road trip that she'd been planning and saving money for and stuff. She really wanted to go to this road trip to Oklahoma. I don't know who takes a road trip to Oklahoma, but she wanted to do it, She would miss holidays with family and friends, and it made me think how much our time on earth is truly a gift from God. It's truly a gift. We receive it as stewards. We don't own it. It's on loan. Do you realize that, church? We don't own our time. It's on loan to us by God. Time does not belong to us. It has been entrusted to us, and one day each of us will give an account. The psalmist said this in Psalm 90, verse 12. He said, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I want you to repeat that after me. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. There's something about numbering our days that puts life into perspective. There's something about realizing how short life is that helps us reset our priorities. There's this verse in Luke 14. Jesus tells a story of a man who made this banquet, this beautiful banquet, and he invited all these guests to come and to share in his banquet, and he sent the servant out to get the guests, but they were all too busy. They were all too busy. One was busy with his business. One was busy with his family. Another was busy taking care of his stuff. They were all too busy, and they missed out on the amazing feast that this person had made for them. Isn't that a perfect illustration of our lives? We get so caught up in our business and our families and our stuff that we begin to crowd out God. We can become so busy making a living that we forget to make a life. God gets crowded out of our lives simply because there is no more room for Him to enter. Just like when Jesus was born, there is no more room at the end. In our lives, we fill our lives with so much activity that we have no room for Jesus at the end of the day. But this is what happens in the Screwtape Letter. C.S. Lewis says this, and this is what Satan starts to whisper in our ear. The evil one, he prevents us from encountering God because he whispers this in our ear. He says, you're just too busy right now. You'll get to that soon. Soon you'll do that. Soon you'll do that. Don't worry. You can do that tomorrow. Don't worry. There's still time. Don't worry. Just do what you want to do now, because there'll always be time for that deep stuff. The deep religious stuff. Oh, don't worry about it. Church, repeat after me. Oh Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I read a story the other day about the Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel. Alfred woke up one morning to read his own obituary in the local newspaper. He's like, I'm not dead yet. Man, can you imagine that? Waking up to see that you're dead. Hey, who knew, Anyway, his obituary, it read this in the newspaper. Alfred Nobel, the inventor of dynamite, who died yesterday, devised a way for more people to be killed in war than ever before, and he died a very rich man. See, it actually turned out that Alfred's brother had died, and the newspaper made a mistake, but that day changed Alfred's life forever. He realized that he didn't want to be remembered like that. He didn't want to be remembered as the inventor of death. So as a result, he developed the Nobel Prize for those individuals that foster peace in the world. Nobel wrote, "Every man ought to have the chance to correct his epitaph in midstream and write a new one." As I was listening to my mom's obituary being read at the memorial service, I thought, how am I going to be remembered? How am I going to be remembered? What are people going to say at my funeral? Isn't that a sobering thought? If you're going to play that in your head, what are people going to say at my funeral? What are people going to say about me? I thought through things that they were going to say. I was like, well, I guess they're probably going to say, man, that guy really loved Diet Coke. He was a big Diet Coke fan, And who knows, maybe everybody will have a good Diet Coke on me or something. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to say, man, he loved music, especially this 80s band, The Cure. He was infatuated with them. He was like a little girl at a Justin Bieber concert when they come on. I don't know. Are they going to say that? Are they going to say, man, he really loved the Dallas Mavericks? Man, he loved the Dallas Mavericks. He loved basketball. I hope not. I hope that the sum of my life is so much more than these trivial things. Don't you? So if you were going to write your own obituary, what would you say? What would you say? What would you want it to say? So repeat after me, O Lord, teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. So a couple days ago, the millionth form that I had to fill out for my mom and everything was a form for a company to go out and actually put the dates on the headstone. And I had to write all this down. And so I wrote on the form November 17th, 1951, July 24th, 2021. When I filled out the form, I thought of this poem that was read at my uncle's funeral, and it's a really famous poem, and you've probably already heard it, but I just wanted to share it because it means a lot to me. It's a poem by Linda Ellis called The Dash, and it reads, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash in between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters most is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more. and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before, if we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? You see, when you think about that dash, doesn't it put everything else into perspective? Doesn't it put life into perspective? You can actually understand why the writer of Ecclesiastes comes out and he says, meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Because if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, what you see is he tried everything to bring fulfillment to his life. He tried to become the smartest person in the world. He said, no, that's a chasing after the wind. He tried to live his life for pleasure and laughter and cheer, and at the end he said, that just led to emptiness. He tried to work and labor, but he said nothing is gained under the sun. He became the richest person in the world, but what he said was, with more stuff comes more worry. He finally basically surrenders and concludes at the end of the book. He says, the only thing that matters is to fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Now, the writer of Ecclesiastes, I don't think he was saying that education is bad. I don't think he was saying that laughter is evil. I don't think he was saying work is in vain or money is worthless. What he is saying is those pursuits without making glorifying God the center of those pursuits is meaningless. We use those things to glorify God, not as an end unto themselves. That's what he's telling us. You see, when the psalmist says, and you can repeat, O Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. What he was saying is, God, give me an eternal perspective on this temporal world. Give me an eternal perspective on this temporal world. Help me to remember that what is here is not the only thing that exists. Help me to see something higher. Help me to live for something more than just today. Help me to realize that after my life is over, the world still goes on, and how I live my life will determine the future for many generations. Help me to have an eternal perspective on these things. Help me not just to live for myself, but help me to live for you, because you will continue to live on through age after age after age. That's what he's saying. Knowing that our time is quickly running out should focus us, not cause us grief. It should focus us. I'm thinking about the basketball team that's down by 2 with 10 seconds left on the clock. They're a focused team. They're not running around frantic going, I don't know what's going to, they're not sitting on the bench going, I guess we lost, we're down by 2. No, 10 seconds is a lot of time. In basketball, that's like 45 minutes. With all the timeouts and everything. They got a lot of time on their hands. Think about that football team that's down by a touchdown with 2 minutes on the clock. Have you ever watched a football game and saw 2 minutes on the clock, and then they could be down by like 8 touchdowns or whatever, but this 2-minute offense that they run is incredible. They're just like pass after pass after pass, touchdown. They get disciplined. They run those plays. They know what the 2 minutes is, and they do that. I sit there watching football going, why did they not do that the whole game? But anyway, those 2 minutes, they don't get frantic. They get disciplined. When a runner is on the last lap of a race with one person in front of them, they get determined. They get determined. I know I've watched this. I've watched my son Rylan run track, and he's turning the corner, and I see somebody in front of him, and you can just see that look on his face, like he doesn't need to be in front of me. He needs to be behind me, and he just and he does that. It's disciplined, focused. So once again, repeat after me, O Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom, a heart of focus, a heart of discipline, a heart of determination. For what? Why do we do this? Why should he teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom? What's that wisdom that he's trying to get us to see? He's trying to get us to see that our life is for his glory and his worship and his adoration and his glorification and his magnification and his praise. That's true wisdom. The greatest use of our time is to spend it for something that will outlast it. What will they say when your time comes to an end? I hope they say, I don't know what they're going to say at my funeral. I probably won't have any say in that. I'll be gone anyway. But this is what I hope they say. As long as Paul had breath in his lungs, he spent it in glorifying God and helping and trying to convince others to do the same. O Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom.